The Lucky Farmer. The Lucky Farmer. There once was an old Zen farmer. Every day the farmer used his horse to help work in the fields and keep his farm healthy. But one day the horse ran away. And all the villagers came by and said, "We're so sorry to hear this, such bad luck." But the farmer responded, "Who knows? Good luck, bad luck? Too early to tell." The villagers were confused, but decided to ignore him. A few weeks went by, and then one afternoon, while the farmer was working outside, he looked up and saw his horse running towards him. But the horse was not alone. The horse was returning to him with a whole herd of horses. So now the farmer had 10 horses to help work his fields. And all the villagers came by to congratulate the farmer and said, "Wow, this is such great luck." But the farmer responded, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" A few weeks later, the farmer's son came over to visit and help his father work on the farm. While trying to tame one of the horses, the farmer's son fell and broke his leg. The villagers came by to commiserate and said, "Oh, how awful. This is such bad luck. We're sorry." Just as he did the first time, the farmer responded, "It's hard to tell. Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" A month later, the farmer's son was still recovering. He wasn't able to walk or do any manual labor to help his father around the farm. Just then a regiment of the army came marching through town, conscripting every able-bodied young man to join them. When the regiment came to the farmer's house and saw the young boy's broken leg, they marched past him and left him where he lay. Of course, all the villagers came by again and said, "Amazing! This is such great luck for you. That is so fortunate." And the farmer again replied, "Who knows? We'll see." The Servant Who Kept the Gate. A man about to make a lengthy journey told his servant, "Keep the gate well and be sure to look after the ass and its rope." The servant promised he would, and his master went on his way. A few days after his master left, however, the servant received word that some people had gathered in the neighboring village to play music. This excited him a great deal, for he loved to hear people play and sing, and he could not stop thinking of how he could go to the next village and hear them. Finally, he took the rope, tied the gate to the ass's back, and went with the ass to the playhouse where he enjoyed himself listening to the music. But while he was there, some thieves noticed that the gate was gone, broke into the master's house, and made off with all the valuable possessions. When the master returned home and saw his house stripped bare, he called the servant to him. "Where is everything?" he demanded. The servant answered, "You gave me orders to watch the gate, the ass, and the ass's rope." "That is what I did. They're all here, just as you see. I don't know anything about anything else." The master couldn't believe his ears. "You total fool," he shouted. "I asked you to keep the gate to protect the contents of my house. Now that my belongings are lost, what use is a gate?" Fools in the world of birth and death, who make themselves the servant of craving, are like this. The Buddha teaches us always guard the gate of the 5 senses and the mind to avoid attachment to the 6 senses and 6 sense objects, and to observe the ass of ignorance and the tether of craving. But many monks do not follow Buddha's teachings and greedily chase after the benefits while pretending to be pure. Though they sit in meditation, their minds continue to waver with attachment to the 5 desires. They are confused by forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and things they can touch. Their minds are blinded by ignorance and bound by the rope of craving. Because of this, such treasures as clear thought, awakened mind, and the path of wisdom remain lost to them forever. Thus it is so. The Duck Call. On festival days in another country, it was a custom for women to adorn their hair with beautiful water lily blossoms. On one of those occasions, there was a poor man whose wife was very cross. "Get me a blossom from a water lily," she told him, "and I will remain your wife. But if you cannot even provide me with that, I will leave you." Her husband had long been good at imitating the call of the mandarin duck, so he set out for the pond owned by the king. When he arrived, the man lowered himself into the pond, made the call of the duck so he could draw near to the water lilies without arousing suspicion, and stole a beautiful blossom for his wife. While the man was wading back to shore with his prized blossom in his hand, the keeper of the pond thought he heard something and called out, "Who is in the pond?" The poor man became flustered, and without thinking he answered, "It's a duck." At this time, the keeper came running, caught the man, and hurried him off to face the king. On the way there, the poor man became quite frightened, and in a desperate attempt to turn things around, he imitated the call of the duck once again. The pond keeper was astonished. "Why in the world didn't you do that before?" he asked, shaking his head. "What's the good of doing it now?" There are many people like this foolish man. They spend their entire lives creating trouble and causing others harm, and no time at all in training their minds and developing good virtues. Then at the end of their lives, when they are facing death, they say, "Now I want to do good deeds and devote myself to practice." But they are already in the grips of the jailer, who brings them to the king of death. Although they may want to practice good deeds and cultivate their minds, it is too late. Just like a foolish man who made a duck's call as he was being taken to the king. The Fox and the Falling Branch. In the middle of the afternoon, a fox was lying sleepily under a tree. Suddenly a strong wind came up and broke off the branch that fell from the top of the tree onto the fox's back. At first the fox closed his eyes so that he would not have to look at the tree, but a little while later he scurried from beneath it and ran until he was quite far away. Later on the sun began to set. The fox could still see the tree from where he was sitting, but he would not go back. After a while, however, the wind picked up again, and the fox watched as the great tree seemed to be waving up and down with all its branches. "Ah," thought the fox, "the tree is calling me. I had better return." Foolish students with little understanding are like this. They have left their homes and learned how to live with a teacher, but the smallest scolding causes them to run away. Then they travel far and wide and meet with teachers of distorted views who confuse them so badly that they have no idea what to think. So they return to their original teacher. Such comings and goings are caused by their delusion. It is not very hard for them to see this and make the needed change. A handful of hair. A long time ago, 2 children were playing in a river that ran beside their village. As they peered through the water to the bottom of the river, they saw a handful of hair. They scooped it out, and one of the children said, "This was the beard of a sorcerer." The other one disagreed. "No," she said, "it's the fur of a great brown bear." They argued back and forth, each child insisting that she was right. Meanwhile, the sorcerer was sitting a little further down the riverbank. Since the children kept arguing and could not solve this question themselves, they approached the sorcerer and asked to help. The sorcerer took some rice and sesame seeds he was carrying in his bag, chewed them up until they made a bit of paste, and then spit the mixture into his palm. Then he held it out for the children to see and told them, "This is peacock dung." The children were confused and had many questions after seeing what he had done, but the sorcerer refused to answer a single one. When everyone heard about this, they laughed at the sorcerer and shook their heads, thinking him an ignorant man indeed. Foolish teachers are like this. When they explain the teachings, they make up meaningless arguments, give ridiculous answers to questions, and say just about anything. This is like the sorcerer who would not answer the children's questions and ended up being laughed at by everyone. Be wary of those who give insincere and confused explanations, for they are just like this foolish man. Infinite patience. There once lived a quick-tempered old man. Because he was well aware he had such a short fuse, he painted a sign on that read, "Infinite Patience Realm," and hung it on the front of his door, hoping it would prevent him from getting angry. After a few months, the old man was convinced he had conquered his temper. He was so confident that his newfound patience that he began to brag about. One day, a passerby saw his sign, feigned ignorance, and asked, "What does that sign say?" "Infinite Patience Realm," said the old man patiently. "Oh, Infinite Patience Realm," the passerby repeated. The passerby began walking away, but he turned back a moment later and asked again, "I'm so sorry. Could you please repeat what the sign says?" "It says Infinite Patience Realm." Right, of course, silly me." Once again the passerby walked away, but he returned only a few seconds later and once again asked, "Could you tell me one more time what the sign says? I keep forgetting." The old man exploded. "What is your problem? Are you an idiot? It says Infinite Patience Realm. Is that so hard to get through your thick skull? It says Infinite Patience Realm." The passerby grinned and said, "Actually, it should say Limited Patience Realm." Heavy as a stone. 4 traveling monks visited Master Hogan. They asked if they could build a fire in his yard to warm themselves. While they sat by the fire, they began discussing the nature of the mind. Master Hogan pointed to a nearby boulder. "That huge stone there, do you consider it to be inside or outside of your mind?" One of the monks claimed, "Everything is an objectification of the mind, so I would say that the stone is inside my mind." Master Hogan said, "Your mind must feel very heavy if you are carrying around a stone like that." The Blind Man and the Elephant. When the Buddha was teaching at the Jeta Grove, he told his disciples the following story. Once the king Saravati invited several people who were blind from birth to his palace. The blind men assembled, and the king led an elephant from his stables and stood it before them. Without revealing what was standing in front of them, he asked each of the blind men to touch the elephant and describe what it was like. The first blind man touched the elephant's legs and said that they were like pillars of a house. The second stroked the elephant's tail and said it was like a feather duster. The third touched its ears and announced it was like a fan. The fourth touched the elephant's stomach and declared it was like a barrel. The fifth rubbed the elephant's head and proclaimed it was like a large water pot. The sixth touched its trunk and said the elephant was like a stick. A heated argument arose in which none of the blind men could agree. Each was blinded by his own limited experience. Each had a partial understanding, but each man's perception was incomplete, and no one saw the whole picture. Radiating kindness. At one time the Buddha dwelt with Saravati in the Jeta Grove. One year, at the beginning of the rainy season, he set up a group of monks to practice meditation in the nearby forest. There the monks took shelter beneath the branches of an ancient tree. The monks had no idea this enormous tree was home to several tree spirits. The tree spirits resented the arrival of the monks, and realizing they were likely to stay for the entire rainy season, they devised ways to scare them away. Every night when the monks were fast asleep, the tree spirits climbed down from their tree and harassed the monks with terrifying howling and screaming. After a few nights of this, the frightened monks hurried back to the Buddha and pleaded with him to allow them to practice in a different part of the forest. The Buddha told them he would do something even better. He would give them something that would protect them. That night he sent the monks back into the forest to dwell under the very same tree. Before they returned, though, he recited the mantra Metta, Loving Kindness Sutra, which he urged them to recite whenever they felt fear or anger. The brief sutra begins, "This is what should be done, by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace." The sutra continues, "May all beings be at ease. Let no one deceive another. or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world. The monks returned to the forest and took up residence under the ancient tree. Late that night the tree spirits climbed down from the tree and once again began screeching and howling, but this time the monks chanted the Metta Sutra. With single-minded concentration on the words of the sutra, their loving kindness radiated up into the branches of the tree and spread out into the forest. The tree spirits felt the powerful effects of the monks' loving kindness and never disturbed their practice again. Truly good and kind. When the Buddha dwelt at Saravasti, one of his disciples was a monk named Purna. After studying with the Buddha, Purna asked if he could travel to the village of the Sarapanatakas and teach the Dharma. The Buddha told him, "Purna, the Sarapanatakas are angry and violent people. If you meet them on the road, they will curse you and insult you. What will you think then?" "I will think they are good and kind people, because they do not hit me with their fists or throw rocks at me." The Buddha said, "What if they hit you with their fists and throw rocks at you?" "I will think they are good and kind people, because they do not attack me with clubs or swords." "But what if they attack you with clubs and swords?" "I will think they are good and kind because they do not kill me." The Buddha asked, "And what if they kill you?" "If they kill me, they are truly good and kind because they spare me the suffering of this body." The Buddha smiled. "Very good, Purna. You are well equipped with the equanimity to teach and transform these violent people." With the Buddha's blessings, Purna journeyed to the village of Sarapanatakas. Within 3 months, Purna taught the way to more than 1,000 men and women there, subduing them with kindness, pacifying them with love. Just passing through. Hanshan was traveling late at night when he lost his way. After struggling through pitch darkness, he noticed a light in the distance. As he drew closer, he saw that it was a large house. He knocked on the door and asked the owner if he could stay for the night. "Find some other place," growled the owner. "My home is not an inn." Hanshan grinned. "You have it all wrong. Your home is an inn. I can prove it if you'll answer 3 questions. "Fine," said the owner. "If you can prove my house is an inn, I'll let you stay for the night." "Who lived in this house before you?" Hanshan asked. "My father." "Who lived in the house before your father?" "My grandfather." "And when you pass away, who will live in this house then?" "My son." "Aha! See, you are only a temporary resident of this house. Like me, you are merely a traveler who's just passing through." A matter of life and death. 3 old friends were engaged in a conversation while drinking tea. One of the friends was 60 years old, another 70, and another 80 years old. The 60-year-old said, "My friends, we are together this year enjoying tea, but at our age we do not know whether we will be around next year." The 70-year-old responded, "You make a good point, but at my age, when I take off my shoes and socks at night, I don't know whether I'll be around to put them back on in the morning." The 80-year-old sighed. "You youngsters think you're pretty wise. At my age, when I breathe in, I don't know whether I'll be around to breathe out." 3 laughing monks. Huyan lived during the 4th century. He founded Donglin Temple on beautiful Mount Lushan. For 30 years, Huyan never once came down from the mountain. After guests visited him, he would escort them only as far as the Hisui Bridge below the temple. At the base of the bridge, a divine tiger, who protected the mountain, would roar out of a fierce warning if Huyan attempted to venture beyond the bridge. Once Huyan was bidding goodbye to Tao Yongming and Lu Jingzhu Ping. After their visit, walking away from the temple, the 3 monks were engaged in a lively discussion about mindfulness. They were so absorbed in their conversation, they crossed right over the Hui Bridge. As soon as they crossed the bridge, the tiger growled ferociously. The tiger's roar startled the other two so much they jumped up in fright and cowered behind Huan Yin. A moment later, the three of them looked at each other and burst out laughing. Hui Yan said, "I think the tiger's telling us it's better to be mindful than to talk about it." The image of the three monks laughing uproariously at the edge of the Hui Bridge is immortalized in the famous painting called The Three Laughing Monks of Hui Si. Not human. In Japan, during the Meiji era, there lived two eminent teachers. Unsho observed the precepts carefully. Alcohol never touched his lips. He was a strict vegetarian, and he ate only one meal a day at 11 o'clock in the morning. Hara Tanzan was a professor of philosophy at the Imperial University. He ignored the precepts completely. He drank alcohol regularly, ate meat frequently, and took his meals whenever he liked. One day, Unsho visited Tanzan. By the time Unsho arrived, Tanzan had already drunk half a bottle of wine. Tanzan offered the bottle to Unsho. "Here, have a drink." "I never drink alcohol," Unsho said. "Someone who doesn't drink wine is not human," Tanzan remarked. "If I am not human, what am I?" "A Buddha," answered Tanzan. Searching for enlightenment. One day, a very old man visited Bodhidharma at Shaolin Temple. "Master," said the old man, "I have searched for enlightenment my whole life, but I have been unable to find it. Please tell me how you were able to find enlightenment." The Bodhidharma explained, "I never found it. I just stopped looking for it." Teaching a thief. There once was a Dharma master whose lectures were so popular hundreds of people attended. Among those who came to hear his Dharma talks was a compulsive thief. Every time the thief attended a lecture, he would steal money from the lay disciples and take valuable items from the temple. The other disciples grew increasingly disgusted by the thief's behavior. Before long, a group of them complained to the master. The master said, "Don't worry about him. I will speak with him. He will eventually learn to stop stealing." But a few days later, after more thefts, the same group of disciples returned to the master. "Master, he's at it again. We can't take any more. Either he leaves or we leave." The master said, "You may leave if you like, but I am not going to give up on him. You are all virtuous disciples who learned long ago that stealing is wrong, but the man you call a thief doesn't know this yet. Who will teach him if I abandon him? He needs my teaching most of all." Seeing the master's commitment to teach and transform even the worst of his students, the disciples renewed their practice with even greater vigor. In time, due to the master's compassion, the thief stopped stealing. Virtue in action. When the Brahmadatta was reigning in Bernese, the Bodhisattva was reborn as a wise youth. As a young man, he was educated by a world-renowned professor. The professor had a daughter, whom he wished to marry to a young man of outstanding character. One day, the professor addressed his students. "My friends, I wish to give my daughter's hand in marriage, but for her wedding she must have proper dresses and jewelry. Whoever can steal the finest dresses and extravagant jewelry for her without anyone knowing they have been stolen will win her hand in marriage." On the appointed day, the students brought the professor a wealth of elegant dresses, stylish jewelry, and fancy ornaments. But the Bodhisattva arrived empty-handed. The professor said, "You have brought nothing? Why is this?" The Bodhisattva replied, "You said we must steal dresses and jewelry without anyone knowing that they were stolen. That is not possible. Though I may be able to deceive some people, one person would always know they had been stolen, and that person is me." The professor was pleased with his answer. He said, "Friend, you alone are worthy of my daughter. By your actions you have proven you are a virtuous man." The warmth of the fire. Zhigong The mad monk lived in Hangzhou from 1130 to 1209. For much of his life, he lived at the Lingying monastery, employing highly unconventional methods to teach his students. One freezing cold evening, the last of the monastery's firewood had been burned to ashes. Zhigang and his students sat shivering with no wood to warm them. Suddenly, Zhigang tore down the wooden altar and threw it into the fireplace. "What are you doing, master? That's our sacred altar," cried one of the students. Zhigang did not respond. After the altar burned to coals, he took a large wooden carving of the Buddha and tossed it into the fire. "Don't do that," the student pleaded. "That's the Buddha." "This statue is not the Buddha," Zhigang insisted. "It's just wood. Wood burns and turns to ash, but wisdom is a fire that never burns up." It will pass. A teacher asked his disciple how his meditation was going. The student said, "It's awful. My mind constantly distracted. My back and my ache. Sometimes I fall asleep. It's terrible." The teacher said, "Don't worry, it will pass." A week later, the teacher again asked the student how his meditation was going. The student answered, "It's wonderful. My mind is full of clarity. I'm bursting with joy and energy. It's incredible." The teacher said, "Don't worry, it will pass." A perfect reflection. One evening, an abbess and a novice nun were walking side by side under a full moon. The novice was carrying a bucket she had filled at the nearby well. As they walked, the abbess pointed out the bucket and said, "Look, you can see the moon." The novice looked into the bucket, but she saw only the movement of the water sloshing from side to side. Just then, the piercing screech of an owl stopped them both dead in their tracks. As they stood there, the abbess' eyes grew once again drawn to the water in the bucket. "Look, there it is again." In the silence of the forest, the novice stood still and watched the water settle until its surface shone like a mirror. As she held the bucket steady, she was finally able to see a perfect reflection of the moon. Nothing exists. A famous samurai was traveling with a Zen master, visiting various temples. One evening, the samurai was showing off his knowledge of Buddhism for the benefit of the Zen master. Emptiness is form, and form is emptiness. There is no enlightenment, no awakening, no satori. All phenomena, sentient beings, mountains and rivers, the mind, all devoid of form, all empty. There is no self, no attainment, because nothing exists. The Zen master grew weary of listening to the samurai's blabbering, so he grabbed the samurai's bamboo sword and smacked him with it. "Hey, what the hell?" the samurai yelled. "If nothing exists, where did your anger come from?" asked the Zen master. A finger pointing at the moon. Under a chrysanthemum moon, a teacher and his students were walking with a temple dog. As they walked, the teacher threw a stick for the dog to fetch. Each time the dog retrieved the stick happily, wagging its tail, anxiously awaiting the next toss. As they strolled, the teacher cautioned the student, "You must understand that words are not the Dharma. Words only point the way to the Dharma. Here, I'll show you." With that, the teacher called the dog. "Here, boy." The dog bounded over and sat obediently at the teacher's feet. "Fetch the moon," said the teacher, and pointing up at the moon, Where's the dog looking?" "He's looking at your finger," said the student. "Exactly. Don't mistake the finger for the moon. A teacher points the way to the truth, but only direct experience of the Dharma brings true understanding." I don't get angry. Far away at a remote mountain monastery, there lived a wise sage. One day a group of cultivators visited the sage. Among them was a layman who claimed that from the day he was born until the day he had never once been angry. The sage had trouble believing this. He told the layman so. Everyone is afflicted with anger from time to time. Not me. I have never been the least bit angry, the layman insisted. That's impossible. You're a big fat liar, said the sage. Shut up, you stupid jerk, screamed the layman. If I say I don't get angry, I'm telling you I don't get angry. Kuan Yin saves the son of the Dragon King. The youngest son of the Dragon King had transformed himself into a graceful, iridescent fish. He swam in the warm waters of South China Sea, daydreaming. But his daydream came to an abrupt end when he was caught in the cruel nets of the fishermen. The fisherman pulled his net from the sea and marveled at the beauty of the iridescent fish. He hurried to the market where he knew the fish would fetch an exorbitant price. Even out of the water the fish remained alive, crying out for mercy to no avail. Its father, the Dragon King, was powerless on land, and so was unable to save his son. But Kuan Yin Bodhisattva, she who hears the cries of the world, heard the fish's cries, and sent a young boy named Shan Si to recover the fish. Shan Si arrived at the market and joined in a bidding war over the rare fish. The bidders, convinced that eating the fish would bring them immortality, quickly outbid Shan Si. When the sale was finalized, Shan Si pleaded with the new owner to spare the fish's life, but the man only laughed at Shan Si and turned away. Suddenly, Kuan Yin manifested before him and said, "A life should belong to he who tries to save it, not he who tries to destroy it." Kuan Yin vanished as quickly as she had appeared. The owner, realizing this was no ordinary fish, gave it to Shan Si. Kuan Yin reappeared and Shan Si gave her the fish. Then Kuan Yin returned it to the sea where it transformed back into a dragon and returned home. As a reward for saving his son's life, the Dragon King sent his granddaughter, Long Nu, to present Kuan Yin with the ever-shining Pearl of Light. The popular images depicting Kuan Yin Bodhisattva with two children are those of Long Nu, the dragon girl holding the Pearl of Light, and Shan Si, the youth, good wealth, with palms placed together. Not the same. Devadatta had a deep jealousy of the Buddha's calm demeanor. He spent his days scheming of ways to anger the Buddha and force him to lose his temper. One morning, as the Buddha was out walking, Devadatta snuck up behind him and hurled a large rock that hit the Buddha right between his shoulders. The Buddha knew Devadatta had thrown the rock, but he kept walking without a single thought of retaliation. A few days later, the Buddha passed Devadatta and greeted him affectionately. "Aren't you angry?" Devadatta asked. "No," said the Buddha. "You are no longer the same person who threw the rock, and I am no longer the same person who was there when the rock was thrown." Zhao's instructions. Visiting Bailin Temple for the first time, a monk spoke with Master Zhaju, hoping he would impart some esoteric teaching. "Master, please teach me the essence of Shan." The Master Zhonshou asked, "Have you eaten your supper?" The monk replied, "I have." "Then go wash your bowl." Death of a Teacup. When Zen Master Ikku Sojun was a young monk, he accidentally broke his master's favorite teacup. The master heard the shattering of the glass and hurried to see what happened. Ikku gathered up the pieces of the antique teacup that the master considered a fine treasure. Remembering the master's teachings on impermanence, Ikku held the jagged shards behind his back as the master entered the room. "I heard a crash. Did something break?" Ikku didn't answer. Instead he asked, "Master, why must people die?" "It is natural," the master answered. "There comes a time for all things to die." Ikku showed the master the broken pieces of the teacup and said, "Master, it was time for your teacup to die." Real wealth. Once a rich man came upon Han Shan dressed in ragged robes, sitting in meditation. The wealthy man frowned and said, "How sad is this poor beggar who knows nothing more than a thin robe upon his back." Then the rich man shook his head and walked away disgustedly. Han Shan overheard his remark. He slowly opened his eyes and shook his head and said, "How sad is this rich man who doesn't know one who fills his warehouse with 1,000 pieces of gold has less than the poor man who practices meditation." The blind man's lantern. Late one night, a blind man was returning home after visiting a friend. Since it was pitch dark outside, the friend offered the blind man a lantern to light his way. "I don't need a lantern," said the blind man. "Whether it's dark or light out, my vision is the same." "That's true," said the friend, "but if you don't carry a lantern, other people might bump into you." So the blind man accepted the lantern from his friend. He began walking home with the lantern held out in front of him for all to see, but he had only walked a short distance before he ran smack into another person. "Why don't you watch where you're going?" said the blind man. "Couldn't you see my lantern?" "I would have seen it had you lit the candle." One thing at a time. A teacher instructed his students, "Do all things single-mindedly, and only do one thing at a time. When you read the newspaper, just read the newspaper. When you drink coffee, just drink coffee." One of the students raised his hand saying, "Master, yesterday I saw you drinking coffee and reading the newspaper." "Yes," said the teacher. "Like I said, when you drink coffee and read the newspaper, you should just drink coffee and read the newspaper." Speaking Dharma for Rocks. Master Tao Sheng lectured on the Nirvana Sutra and taught that all things, insentient beings, even rocks, have a Buddha nature. As a result of his unconventional views, which seemed to contradict the words of the sutra, the other Dharma masters ostracized him and told everyone to avoid his lectures. This was no problem for Master Tao Sheng. He went up to the Hushui Mountains and spoke Dharma for the rocks in the field. When he asked them whether insentient beings had the Buddha nature, it said that the rocks nodded in agreement. Because he knew all things have the Buddha nature, the reaction of the rocks did not surprise the master. He noted, "The rocks have been nodding long before anyone spoke to them." Bodhidharma's shoe. Patriarch Bodhidharma came from the west, bringing the Dharma to China. When he died on the 5th day of the 10th lunar month in 528 AD, his remains were interred behind the Tinglen temple near Luoyang. But 3 years after he died, a diplomat named Song Yin met Bodhidharma walking barefoot on the road of Zhongnan Mountains. Slung over his right shoulder was a wooden staff, at the end of which hung a single shoe. "Where are you going?" Song Yin asked. "I'm going home," Bodhidharma replied. And with one shoe at the end of this staff, Bodhidharma returned to the west. Word of Song Yin's encounter with Bodhidharma spread far and wide until a group of monks decided to open Bodhidharma's tomb at Tinglen Temple. Inside, all they found was a single shoe. Han Shan's blank scroll. The monks of Quangang Monastery filed out of the Buddha hall, skipped the lecture, fell into line behind the monks. A mischievous grin played across his face. In his hand he held a blank scroll. The scroll was dog-eared and weather-beaten, and contained not a single character on either side. The last monk in line asked Han Shan what was written on the scroll. "The Sutra on True Emptiness." House of Harmony. During the Tang dynasty, there lived an elderly minister named Zhang Yongyi. He was the patriarch of a large family which lived together harmoniously under one roof for 9 generations. It was said that 1,000 members of his family had never quarreled among themselves. The men and the women controlled their anger, they showed restraint, and they were never jealous of one another. The children got along and were never selfish in their toys. Even the dogs refrained from stealing each other's bones because of the family reputation for avoiding conflicts. The household became known as the House of Harmony. Now, the tale of this extraordinary family eventually reached the ears of the emperor, Gozong. He decided to pay a surprise visit to the old minister's home to see with his own eyes the truth of the story. When the emperor arrived, he commended Zhang Yingyang, explaining that his family's reputation was known throughout the country. "But tell me, venerable sir," asked the emperor, "what is the secret of your family's harmony?" Zhang Yangyi motioned to one of his young grandsons to bring him paper, ink, and a brush. When the brush was brought to him, Zhang Yingye, with his ancient hand, wrote 100 words on the paper. The first word he wrote was patience, and so was the next, and the next, and the next, and every word unto the end was patience. "The secret," said the old man, "lies in the word patience," repeated 100 times. On the other side. In the midst of a long journey, a cultivator came to the banks of a roaring river. Standing at the edge of the wide river, he contemplated how he would ever get across to the other side. As he was about to give up hope, he noticed an old monk on the other side of the river. He called out to the monk, "Shifu, can you tell me how to get to the other side of this river?" The elderly monk called back, "But you are on the other side." An empty cup. An esteemed professor of Eastern religions arrived to learn from Zen master Nanin. But instead of listening to the master's wisdom, the pedantic scholar talked incessantly about his own knowledge of Zen. After listening to a non-stop monologue from the professor, Nanin served him tea. He carefully poured tea into the professor's cup until the teacup was filled to the brim. Then he continued pouring, so that the tea flowed over the side of the cup, filled the saucer, and ran down the tea table, soaking the professor's slacks on the floor. The professor scolded the Zen master. "Can't you see the cup is full? There is no room for any more." "Yes," said Nanin, "just like the teacup, you are overflowing with your own opinions and ideas. There's no room for any more. Unless you empty yourself, you will never learn true Zen." A questioning of awakening. One day a student named Michifumi came to speak with Zen master Shinkan. After bowing before the master, Michifumi asked, "I have one question that has troubled me for many years. In the Lotus Sutra it says, sentient and insentient beings both attain perfect wisdom. That suggests that grasses, flowers, and trees can awaken to Buddhahood. How is that possible?" Master Shinkan answered, "The question is not whether grasses, flowers, and trees can awaken to Buddhahood. The question is how you yourself can awaken." So Michifumi posed a second question. "Tell me then, how can I awaken?" Master Shinkan answered, "You said you only had one question. The second question you must answer for yourself." Extinguishing the fire. In a forest at the foot of the Himalayan mountains, one day a small spark ignited a patch of dry grass. A strong wind spread the fire to the larger bamboo trees. From there the fire leapt from one tree to the next, and within a matter of minutes the whole forest was ablaze. In one of the trees of this forest lived a tiny quail. She saw the flames and immediately flew to a nearby river. There she dipped her wings in the water, and then flew back to the forest and fluttered her wings, sprinkling drops of water on the burning trees. The quail returned to the river again and again, each time bringing with her a few more drops of water, hoping to douse the flames. The other birds laughed at the quail. A vulture squawked, "You are never going to put out a forest fire with a couple drops of water. Give it up." "I may not be able to put out the fire all at once," said the quail, "but I'll keep trying again and again. Even if it takes this lifetime and the next, you can give up and watch the forest burn if you like. But I'm not afraid to do the long, hard work that will eventually extinguish the fire." Wild horses. The sages of India describe the thoughts in the mind like wild horses. Wild horses thundering across a sandy beach, chasing through the waters, the spray rising up as they gallop through the water, wild, unleashed, untamed, racing along, those thoughts chasing along the beach. Wild thoughts chasing wildly one after another, powerful muscles powering along the beach. Take control of those horses, slow them down. A gallop to a canter. Watch them slowing down as they move across the beach. A canter to a trot. Trotting more gently now. Trotting along the beach. Those thoughts calming, less wild, calming down. Thoughts slowing down. A trot to a walk now. The horse slowed down, now to a walk. A sedate walk along the beach. Thoughts slowing more. Slowing right down, the horses stop and come to a standstill. Those wild horses, tamed and stilled, standing still on the beach, chest heaving as they rest and recuperate. Resting still, calming and resting, thoughts still now. So still and calm, thoughts slowed down to a standstill, like all those wild horses tamed. Slowed down, nice and slow, the horses just standing on the beach, admiring the ocean and the waves coming to shore. A still, calm mind. The horses at a standstill. The waves calming them and soothing them. Like a horse whisperer who can calm the horses and calm the thoughts. So relaxed now, nice and still. Gardening. You are going into a garden in a moment. It is a very special garden. It is your garden, and no one else can come here. It is walled in and protected. You have not been here for a while. You have not visited the garden. You have opened the gate and stepped in, and find to your surprise that Chinese bindweed, that pest of a weed, has somehow gotten into the garden, your special garden. It's choking some of your most beautiful plants and shrubs, hampering their growth. But you know exactly what you need to do. What you need to do to save your garden, to protect your lovely plants, those plants that have been relying on you for protection. First, you need to cut the bindweed back, hefting your shears and cutting it down. See yourself cutting it down, cutting it right back so you can see the plants underneath now that had been struggling to get nourishment from the sun. As the weed had been blocking the light, they can get their nourishment from the sun now and begin to thrive again. That bindweed has been stealing their water too, taking all the water that has soaked into the soil, thus starving the plants even more of the nourishment that they needed. But you can deal with that too. You have chopped back all the visible weeds now, but you need to get down into the soil and root out the roots, the damaging roots of the weeds. Getting your trowel and digging out the roots, digging them all out, not letting one tiny root escape your attention. See yourself digging out the roots, working hard, rooting out all the weeds, all those damaging weeds, clearing the ground, freeing your plants from the damaging weeds. Drying out those weeds so that you can burn them and destroy them, getting rid of that damaging weed, pulling it up, drying it out, and creating a wonderful bonfire of it, destroying it once and for all. You can do this now. You have put all the strength and ability to root it out and destroy it, working hard, being rewarded for that work, as you see the garden return to its previous beauty, well nourished and thriving, healthy, taking all the weeds you have cut down and the roots you have dug out of the soil and creating a huge bonfire. Destroying all the weeds, not a single damaged cell surviving, weeded out, destroyed, gone. It cannot spread any more, as every last trace of it has gone, feeling stronger and healthier, surveying your beautiful garden now, fully recovered, seeing it in full bloom with beautiful flowers and greens, the green of the well-tended lawn, the colors of the shrubs and flowers, all the beautiful colors of nature all around you. A garden in full bloom, magnificent. And you can rest on a bench now, your work done. Your work complete, but keeping a vigilant eye now for any sign of a weed that might damage your wonderful garden, destroying your peace and beauty. Policing your garden well, protecting it. Protecting your garden, your own special place. Your subconscious mind understands the stories that I tell and works hard to protect you. Letting go of anything unneeded, weeding out the things that are harmful, physically, emotionally, mentally. Pulling out all the weeds, letting them go, leaving you strong and well-nourished and well cared for. Bubbles. Your subconscious mind has all that you need to bring happiness into your life. Deep down in the depths of your subconscious, like a deep sea, your subconscious mind, with fathomless depths, allow the feelings locked deep down in those depths, memories that have brought you happiness, experiences that have brought you pleasure. They may be buried deep, deep, deep down. Allow them to bubble up to the surface like bubbles surface upon the water, popping into the air, popping into your awareness. Small bubbles at first, small feelings of joy. Allow them to surface and make them bigger, stronger. Good feelings surfacing, bubbling to the surface from deep down below. Lost at the bottom of your unconscious for some time perhaps, but allowing them up now. At first it may feel like those good feelings are just out of your reach. It may feel like a glimmer in your peripheral vision. Something there, but not quite there. Glimmering there, just at the edge of your sight. Allowing it to come into focus. Allowing yourself to see those good feelings that have bubbled up to the surface. Feel them come clearly into sight. Set them clearly, making that feeling stronger, sharper, clearer. Those good feelings can be there now. Allowing them back in, so strong now, feeling it, remembering how it feels to feel good. Make that feeling stronger. and those bubbles increasing now as you allow them up to the surface. You begin to notice those feelings more and more as the days pass. They were always there. You'll just notice that you're more aware of them more of the time. It may have started slowly at first, but now you notice those moments of pleasure in your daily life. Pleasure that's happening in the moment. Happiness, enjoyment, gratitude. When you're feeling them. Those feelings that you had been overlooking will not be overlooked anymore. You may wonder why you had overlooked those good feelings in the past, but you will not overlook them anymore. So good, strong, and powerful. As you begin to notice those good feelings, they become ever stronger, more powerful. Choosing more positive thoughts, generating more positive feelings. It generates more positive thoughts, which generates more positive feelings and more positivity in your life. It is in your power to choose now. And why would you want to suppress those good thoughts? No longer burying them deep down, allowing them up and enjoying them. And this is not something that you will not find. It'll be so easy now, because you're just allowing it to happen. Because your unconscious, your brain and your body want to be happy and feel good. Believing a false story. I think we have talked about the stories we create in our heads, the stories that limit us, the story of who we are and what we are capable of. We define ourselves through our family, where we were born, our education, our gender. We create an image of ourselves. And then we add in experience that we think defines us. But they can limit us too. An experience can change. It can change us and limit us and give us a story that we tell ourselves day after day. So we believe it to be true. It becomes reality because we believe it. We do not test it. We need to test those stories that we tell ourselves that limit us. Is this real? How did I reach that conclusion? What evidence is it based upon? Let me tell you a story. It is one of those stories I told myself for a while. One day, years ago, I was asked to appear on camera and be interviewed. I enjoyed public speaking, so I thought it would be fun. I thought I would be good at it. Everyone said I would. I went on camera and I froze. I just could not get my words out. My usually fluid speech just dried up. It was a disaster. I told myself this. I was a disaster on film, and I just could not do it, I said. From that day on, I said I was no good on camera. A couple of years passed, and I was asked to do it again. I cannot do that, I said. I am just really bad at it. But I was told that I had to do it. And I was really shaky and stressed because I told myself for so long now that I was bad on camera. And I believed my story. And so the story was true. It was awful again. So from then on, I avoided all work on camera, got someone else to do it, and my story grew. Then it became necessary for me to consider it again. For my work again. It was down to me, and I began to question my story. I had been on camera twice in my whole life. I expected to be good first time and did not meet my own expectations, and the story began. But who is brilliant at anything the first time? When you ride a bicycle for the first time, you generally fall off. When we learn to write, we are not Shakespeare overnight. We fall when we learn to walk. We miss the goal when we shoot a football. How had I created this massive story about how bad I was, out of something I had done twice? I may never be the best on camera. Like, not everyone can be David Beckman at football. But with a little practice, I could do it. I could try harder and work at getting it right, not giving up at the first hurdle. And so can you. Learn from the story, challenge your story, whatever your story is, whatever story that you want to change. Do not limit yourself by your story. Write a new story, the one where you can change. You can learn and change just as you can learn from my story. The mirror. As you continue to relax, I would like you to imagine there's a mirror in front of you, up on the wall in front of you, at just the right height for you. Perhaps an elaborate frame around the mirror, or is it plain? Head and shoulders there in the mirror. How often do you look in the mirror, I wonder? Really look in the mirror. A quick brush of the hair, a check of the clothes, look okay, makeup, shaving. Do you really look? If you do, what do you see? Our family, our friends, our colleagues, they look at us all the time. They know our face better than we do. They know our expressions. Our expressions, the key to our feelings, sometimes showing more than we know. Look in that mirror and imagine what others see. How do they see us? I wonder if they see us as you see you. Or do you see you differently? I'm sure you have seen mirrors in films, two-way mirrors in films where perhaps a suspect is being interviewed and watched from behind the mirror so they can be observed. Another behind that mirror. Well, the mirror you're looking at, in your mind now, that mirror has someone that loves you behind it. They are looking right at you. So what do they see? We tend to notice our imperfections. That is what we focus on. But what do they see? They see us differently. They see the good things, both inside and outside. They see our good qualities. What do they think now as they look at you? Imagine the thoughts they have that lift the spirits they feel when they see you. You know that feeling you have when you see someone you love in the street when they do not know you are looking? Catching them not knowing they are observed? That unexpected feeling of love and protection when you catch them unawares. The person that loves you has such feelings too. Perhaps that is what they feel when they look at you through the mirror. Thinking about the reasons they love you. Perhaps leave love out of it. Why do they like you? Think about why they like you. What would they say now if whilst watching you, someone asked them, what is good about you? In day-to-day life, there is rarely time to do this. Find out how they feel. Sometimes we are inhibited to say how we feel. Feel we are giving something away, giving our power away perhaps. But it is here, it is safe. They can tell you what they like about you, respect about you, what draws them to you. I'm going to be quiet for a few moments to allow you to absorb their positive words, allowing them to sink in like water soaking into a sponge. Their words sinking in. Often they will see us more clearly than we see ourselves. Why they have drawn you into their life and kept you there. Now look at yourself with their words. Why they like and respect you. See yourself through their eyes. Their eyes on the other side of the mirror. See yourself now in the new light. You may want to do this thinking of different people who like you. As we have different relationships, different people bring out different qualities within us. Appreciate different strengths within us. Allow yourself to know all that is good in you. Allow yourself to see clearly in the mirror, to see yourself as you truly are, and not the distorted negative image that we build in our minds of ourselves. Seeing all the things that are wrong, like one of those joke mirrors in the fairground, where everything is twisted and distorted. Instead, seeing yourself through others' eyes, you see yourself as you truly are. All those people who love you and like you, want to be around you, they see all the good qualities in you. And there are so many. See yourself through their eyes. See all the good inside you. Allow yourself to feel all the good inside of you. All that is good in you. You can do this now, really looking now. Looking at yourself with kind, loving, compassionate eyes.